Good morning, everybody. Welcome back there. And someone's got selections here for Thursday, October 21st. We're getting today's play of the day. Quick recap what happened. So we ended up picking up a loss in basketball with the Raptors -2.5 at -110 on DraftKings. Raptors not only lost the game, but they also embarrassed the entire country of Canada because they got killed by the Wizards and only scored 83 points in their first home game, true home game, in about a year and a half. Now, I understand if they're going to lose because it's the first game of the season, a little bit of unpredictability involved, but they only scored 83 points against a Wizards team that couldn't really get a stop last year. I know Westbrook was a big factor for that because him and Beal defensively last year were a mess. But 83 points in today's NBA, you can walk into 100. So the offense was absolutely terrible. And yeah, picked up a loss there. On the bright side, if you watched the actual joint video, I did pretty well on my picks there. Didn't get anything wrong as far as I can recall. I know for baseball, I like the Braves and the Astros. For football, I like the under in the App State game, which ended up cashing. For basketball, I like the Knicks covering, which was a crazy double overtime game, but they ended up getting there. And I also like the Bulls for the farm play. So pretty solid day overall, including those picks. Of course, I'm not counting those towards my personal record. And the play of the day is obviously my most important play of the day, so that kind of sucks. But at least made some profit somewhere. Hopefully you're able to join Scott and I for the joint show. Now, briefly mentioning the joint show, I know that the hours might have caught people a little bit off guard because we didn't really fully publicize it. We were still working out the kinks. But the point is, from now on, if you're looking for early morning joint show stuff, you're not going to see it because we're doing live shows now every single weekday, potentially on the weekend as well at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And we changed the name. It's called Heading Back to the Window, and that's going to be the same live show that we have previously, but we're removing some of the segments. So it will be a shorter show, probably going to be around 40 minutes every day, mostly talking about games. We're keeping some segments. We're keeping the rocking chair, the call the cops. We're keeping the donkey of the day because how do you not like that sound effect? And we're still keeping some stuff, but we're still keeping the farm play, of course, but we are removing the news segment of it, and we're making it more game-centric. But if you're looking for it, it's on YouTube for a live stream. It's going to be on Twitch. It's going to be on Facebook. Pretty much any social media platform, you should be able to find it. But I mentioned it's a live stream. That does mean that all of you listening can also interact with us and ask us questions on our thoughts on specific games. Maybe in the past, you liked the baseball game. Not really now, but a baseball game or hockey or something like that, and you want us to talk about it. And during the entire video, we never talked about it. Now you can actually bring up games to us in the chat box, and we will definitely answer your questions. So keep that in mind, 3 p.m. every single weekday Eastern time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. But for the actual play of the day, we're going to be looking at hockey. It's going to be in a matchup between two teams heading in opposite directions. It's going to be a matchup between the Hurricanes and the Canadiens. And for the play of the day, we're going to be taking the Hurricanes on the money line at -120 on DraftKings. Time recording of 1:30 a.m. Eastern time. Covering is why I like the Hurricanes in the spot. First of all, Hurricanes are 2-0 this season. They beat the Islanders handily and then beat the Predators, while the Canadiens are 0-4. And not only are they 0-4, they have been getting absolutely buried in pretty much every game they've been in. With the exception of the first game of the season where they lost by 1 goal to Toronto, they have lost every other game by at least 2 goals. So they've really not been close. And you might be wondering what the problem is for the Canadiens, and the answer is everything. Because offensively, they're not very good. Defensively, they're not very good. They have been outscored 15-3 in 4 games, which means they are allowing 3.75 goals per game, and they are also scoring less than 1 goal per game. You might be wondering, didn't the Canadiens make the Stanley Cup last year? What happened? Why did this team suddenly fall apart? And the answer is injuries. They're missing their 2 best players for a decent amount of time, potentially the entire year. Carey Price, of course, was the star goalie for the Canadiens for the last decade or so, and he might be the best goalie in the entire league, but he is out indefinitely dealing with some mental issues, so he is currently unavailable, and they are using the likes of Jake Allen instead. I'll return to Jake Allen's stats momentarily, but looking at everything else, the defense, you might be wondering why Montreal's defense completely fell apart. It's because they're without their star defenseman for basically the entire year, as Shea Weber had some serious health issues that he ended up deciding to basically take the year off. Not, I don't think officially, but he's not playing anytime soon. So the Canadiens are already missing their best 2 players for the start of the season and for the bulk of the season, which is why the Canadiens have looked like a shell of the team that they were last year. But Carolina has been a very healthy team. They really don't have many injuries. And if you look at what they've done during the offseason and just during the overall, just top to bottom, just roster evaluation, this team is just very good. There's really no other way to put it. You're looking at what they did in net. They ended up picking up Frederick Anderson over the offseason. He's been sharp, 2-0 with a 2.5 goals against average, 926 save percentage. Now, talking about the replacements for Carey Price, you have Jake Allen, who's 0-3, 305 goals against average, and an 885 save percentage. I'm assuming he'll be in net because the other option is Montembolt, who is even worse. Youngster, pretty much the second goalie who's never really going to play. But Anderson definitely is the better goalie in net in comparison to Allen. But you're just comparing rosters here. Carolina is just so much more talented. Carolina is one of the most talented teams in the Eastern Conference. I know people might forget that because of a little bit of a lack of success in the playoffs besides that one trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. But as a whole, this team's very good. And Montreal, in addition to being 0-4, naturally they're 0-2 at home. So they haven't really taken advantage of the Canadian home ice. And I do think that will once again not play a factor in this one. But if you want to actually just look at any other factors, you can talk about how in addition to Montreal missing Weber and missing Price, they're also missing one of the best players last year in free agency because Konkaniemi, who was one of their best playoff performers, ended up going to Carolina. So Carolina picked up one of Montreal's best players during the offseason. And on top of that, Carolina has owned this team in the past. Canadiens are 2-8 in the last 10 meetings. So Carolina, once again, better form, more talented roster, and they're the healthier team. Minus 120 is an absolute joke. Now, I know hockey has never really been my strong suit when it comes to handicapping for whatever reason, just because of, I don't know if it's a luck or something, but either way, I can't pass up minus 120 on this team. You're fading an 0-4 team with an undefeated team, and it's minus 120. Doesn't make any sense to me. I've already seen some prices climb up to 125, 130. I really don't know where any Montreal money is going to come from because there's really nothing to like about this team right now. And I do think Carolina will eventually get the job done. Now, if you don't want to lay any juice, you could find Carolina in regulation at around plus 135, which I do think is a solid price. But hockey's unpredictable. Comes down to maybe a bad penalty call, a bad bounce or so. So I'm not going to go with the regulation play, but if you do want a plus money play, I do think there's merit with that. But the play today is going to be on the Carolina Hurricanes on the money line at minus 120 on DraftKings. Bye, everyone.